Peace and love be with you all. Assalamu alaikum and uh, Ramadan Mubarak, blessed Ramadan to all of you. We live in a time of information. There is no shortage of information overload, so to speak. But there is a shortage of clarity in the lives of many people. And we're living in a time where we see more than ever screens, whether it is our television, our iPads, or our telephone, news, opinions. And I will say that yet there is many of us, we feel less certain and we feel less grounded in our lives. And some of us, we feel less at peace with ourselves, emotional turmoil. And with that being said, in today's discourse and discussion, I want to talk about something that our theology emphasizes on, a concept that is quite ancient in our theology, but deeply relevant in our contemporary time. We may have heard the term taqwa, which is often translated as consciousness of God. But when we look at this concept, we will know that the translation of consciousness of God just scratches the surface and does not really depicts the true meaning of the term God consciousness when we talk about taqwa. At its heart, taqwa is about clarity. Let that sink in. When we say taqwa of God or taqwa Allah, it means that there must be a level of clarity in our lives. And I'll say that it's the ability to see rightly. It's the ability to respond in a wise way. It's the ability to have that awareness and to live with moral and emotional awareness, with a moral compass. And one of the most powerful tools for developing this consciousness is something surprisingly is very simple, and that is the very fasting that we as Muslims we practice in the blessed month of Ramadan as obligatory, and outside of Ramadan as optional in certain days and certain time. So what is taqwa? What does it actually mean when we say taqwa of God? It does not mean being religious on the outside, but while we're broken in the inside. Religious on the outside, what I mean by that quite often there are those who depict themselves as God conscious by their attire, by their physical appearance. But while that is so, that inside of them, they're broken emotionally, they're broken the mental capacity. When challenges come their way, they're not able to cope. So when we talk of taqwa and consciousness of God, it's living with that inner awareness, acting with a moral sensitivity, acting in such a way where we choose what is right even when it is inconvenient for us, treading the path of righteousness despite that it may be hard, taking the path where you have that moral clarity, knowing that you're in the right path, despite that that may be challenging and that may be inconvenient for you. In simple terms, taqwa or consciousness of God is that inner compass that we have. For Muslims, as we say, it is consciousness of the divine, but for our non-Muslim brothers and sisters, they may refer to it or call it ethical awareness. When you're aware of something being ethical, so there's that ethical awareness, moral clarity, and also living with integrity, right? So when someone is conscious of God, they live with integrity. They make choices where the integrity is not violated in any way or form. Listening to your higher self. A different language, same human truth. So the Quran says that the most honorable people are not the richest. It is not the loudest. It is not the most powerful, but those with the most consciousness of God. God, he says in our theology, and allow me to share this, Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. These are the words that is actually in the Quran. Indeed, the most honorable among you are those that are conscious of the divine. So the most honorable is not those who presents themselves as the as being rich because of the material possessions that they have, or because of how loud they speak and get the attentions of others in a room, or how powerful they are because of the influences that they have, right? And most of the time, those influences sometimes comes from finances. But you can have all of the influences that you have. What matters is that awareness that you have of the divine and live with that moral clarity. And that what matters for us as Muslims when we stand in front of God on the day of accountability, the day of assessment. So why this is so? Because taqwa shapes how you see, how you choose, and how you treat others. When you have taqwa, it somehow shapes your outlook. So therefore, you start looking at people different. You look at them with compassion, with love, and as such, you treat everyone with kindness, with care. How you choose, meaning that if you have to make a choice, you will ask yourself that relevant question: how will this choice uh, affect my life? How it will affect those around me? Is this the right thing or not? How comfortable you are with that choice. So something to really think about, something to ponder upon. And just want to share a little bit about fasting, right? For Muslims, fasting is often looked at as a physical act. So you abstain from food and drink from dawn to dusk, and you say, that you're fasting. But while we say that, right? Why would not eating make someone more aware and more compassionate and more clear? Because fasting does something radical in our modern world. The world in which we live in, there is something that fasting does to us. It interrupts the autopilot. Most of us live reacting to certain things. Eating when we are bored, we consume a lot when we're bored. We have nothing to do. You go into the kitchen, you collect a bowl, and you say, okay, you're munching on something, speaking when you're emotional, and that is a form of reacting to our emotional state. So we communicate and we talk. I was having a communication with someone, speaking with someone, and they were having some issues, and they're saying to me, I see myself talking about my problems with everyone, communicating my problems with everyone, even into the taxi guy I'm communicating my problem with, right? So when you're in an emotional state, you speak when you're emotional. So you are reacting to the state that you are in. Scrolling when you are restless. When you're restless, you scroll through your phones. So we are reacting, consuming without reflection, without pondering, without tadabbur, as we say, and tafakkur. These are two Arabic terminology. Tadabbur, we're deep thinking. So when we fast, it breaks that cycle. When we fast, it breaks that cycle that we find ourselves in, and that is the autopilot, or us reacting while we spend our days. So for hours, you sit with hunger. For hours, you sit with thirst and desire and with impulse. And instead of obeying them, obeying your desire, obeying your impulse, obeying, uh, that feeling of yours, right? Instead of obeying them, you observe them, you monitor them. And that moment when desire arises, you don't immediately react. And that is where the beginning of taqwa is. You pause because you're aware of it. You're conscious of it. And you pause. You don't react, but rather you pause. You take a deep breath. You ask yourself the relevant questions. I'll say this as well. Important point to highlight, and that is one of the things when we talk about uh, fasting is training the heart, not just the body. Training the spiritual heart and not just the body. And as I said, many people, when they talk about fasting, they often think about abstention from food and drink. And I explained to you how you should look at that, right? A deeper awareness, a deeper way to look at that abstention in food and drink and how it can help us. But now there's this fasting is relating to our spiritual heart. So it's not only about our stomach. In Islamic spirituality, the heart is not just an organ. It's a center of perception. It's a center of perception. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of God Almighty be with him, he said, this is what he said. He said that when the heart is sung, the whole person becomes sung. When your spiritual heart is sung and aligned, your your entire person, your whole person becomes sung. So your limbs are linked with your heart. But if the heart gets clouded, distracted, foggy by subhanallah, by constant indulgence in evil, by unchecked anger, by your ego, by distraction, by noise, fasting gently cleans away layers. Those layers, it cleans it away. Hunger humbles us. It teaches us humility. Thirst slows us down. Silence becomes possible. And in that quiet, sometimes powerful thing happens. And in that quiet, something powerful happens. And what is that? The heart starts to see. The heart starts to see with light instead of impulse. The heart becomes more aware of your reaction, your tone, your assumptions, your judgment. And this is the spiritual vision, brothers and sisters. Take a moment, right? And think about this routine that we go through in the blessed month of Ramadan, fasting and you know, observance. And how changed we are, how transformed we become is a question that we need to ask ourselves. Do you strive to find a better version of yourself in Ramadan? And you try to let your today be better than yesterday and hoping for your tomorrow be better than the day that was before. Did Ramadan help you along those lines? When we talk of taqwa and consciousness of God, let's relate it to our everyday lives. Let's try to relate it to our everyday lives. Because taqwa is not just for prayer places. It shows up when you pause before you send an angry message to someone, and you choose honesty before you choose to lie, because lying is easier, but you choose to do the right thing. You refrain from your ego rather than arguing and argumentation. You show compassion when no one is watching, and fasting it trains this muscle daily. Every time you resist what is permissible, whether it's food or drink, you gain strength to resist what is harmful. And I want to say this and say it very clearly, that this is a golden opportunity for all of us, right? It's a golden opportunity for all of us. And we should try our utmost and our best to make the best of these days as we commence the blessed month of Ramadan. The world that we live in doesn't suffer for the lack of knowledge. It suffer from the lack of awareness. Taqwa is that awareness. The consciousness of God is that awareness. Fasting is training. The heart is the classroom. When the heart learns to see with light, life begins to make sense. Not because problem disappears, but because wisdom increases. May all of us, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, learn to live with greater clarity, restraint, compassion, and purpose because the world needs that. Look at the world in which we live in. War and anarchy and greed and ostentation and pride, hate. We need to have that clarity and be aware of it, be mindful of it. With that moral clarity, our world would be a better place. Thank you all so much for listening and for joining. We wish you all the best. And for everyone, may you be blessed with your heart's desire as long as it is good for you. And may every obstacle be removed from your path. Life is short. Make wise decisions and live today with the hope that you will live for tomorrow, but with the understanding that today may be your last moment. Love you all. Peace.